Hi there, I hope you are doing fine. This is Mr. Philip Kauma, the excellent biology tutor. We're looking at nutrition, and this is part 1. Without wasting much of your time, let us begin. So, what are the objectives for this tutorial video? What are we going to learn today? Well, we're going to look at the modes of nutrition. That's all. We're just going to look at the modes of nutrition. So before we even look at the modes, it's imperative that we understand what nutrition is. So we first have to define nutrition. So what is nutrition? So this is the process by which living organisms obtain food. Let's pause there, okay? So nutrition is simply a process by which you and I obtain food. If I ask you, how do you obtain food? You'll say, yeah, I go for work, then I'll buy food, then when eating, I'll get that food, I'll put it in my mouth, I will chew it, I'll swallow it, it will go into my stomach, the body is going to take up the nutrients from that food, and then the rest will be excreted. That's the process, isn't it? That process is referred to as nutrition. Even plants, there is a way they obtain food. A fish, there's a way it obtains food. Lion, there's a way they obtain food. So there are different processes, but a process by which a living organism obtains food is known as nutrition. So I hope we are clear with the definition. Now the following diagram gives a summary of the main modes of nutrition in living organisms. So modes, types, it's just the same thing. So we understand what nutrition is, and there are two types of nutrition. We've got autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. These are the two types or modes of nutrition. So under autotrophic nutrition, we've got two types. We've got phototrophic and no, this was supposed to be chemo. So under autotrophic nutrition, we've got phototrophic nutrition and chemotrophic nutrition. So don't mind this. This was supposed to be chemotrophic nutrition. And then under heterotrophic nutrition, we've got parasitic nutrition, saprophytic nutrition, and holozoic nutrition. These are the three types of heterotrophic nutrition. All right. So again, here it was supposed to be chemotrophic and not heterotrophic. So under autotrophic, we've got phototrophic nutrition and chemotrophic nutrition. I hope I have made myself clear on this point. All right. So there are two main modes of nutrition, namely autotrophic and heterotrophic. Now let's look at each one of them individually. So what is autotrophic nutrition? This is a type of nutrition where an organism makes its own food. That's a process by which it obtains food by making it on its own. So autotrophic nutrition is simply a type of nutrition where an organism will make its own food. Is there any organism that is coming to your mind that makes its own food? All right, keep it. Just keep it for now, okay? Keep it. What we need to understand is autotrophic nutrition is a type of nutrition where an organism will make its own food. As for you, as a human being, you do not make your own food. Your body does not make its own food, okay? It does not synthesize its own food, okay? So we are out of this type of nutrition. We do not carry out this type of nutrition, okay? But what we need to know is that autotrophic nutrition is a type of nutrition where an organism makes its own food. All right. Now, organisms that carry out autotrophic nutrition are called autotrophs. So any organism that makes its own food is known as an autotroph, okay, or autotrophs. So those are the organisms that make their own food, autotrophs. All right. So those that use energy from sunlight to make food are called phototrophs or photoautotrophs or photoautotrophs. All right, phototrophs or photoautotrophs. So I'm sure you're going to pick the first one, phototrophs. So phototrophs are simply organisms that make their own food using sunlight energy, okay, or light energy. Phototrophs are simply organisms that make their own food by use of what? Light energy. Example, we've got green plants. Green plants are organisms that make their own food using light energy. So that's the answer you had at first, right? Plants. Yes, you are correct. Plants are organisms that make their own food. And they are phototrophs because they make their own food using light energy. Photo in this term stands for light. So organisms that make their own food using light energy are known as phototrophs, or this other word which I won't pronounce. While those that use energy from chemical reactions to make food are called chemotrophs or chemoautotrophs. Alright, so organisms now that use energy from chemicals, those organisms are known as chemotrophs. Chemotrophs. So autotrophs, under autotrophs we've got phototrophs and chemotrophs. Are you following? So autotroph is an organism that makes its own food. And then an organism that makes its own food using light energy, it is known as phototrophs. And then an organism that makes its own food using energy from chemicals is known as chemotrophs. I hope we are following. Example of chemotrophs, we've got nitrifying bacteria. So these things, as I am explaining right now, it may be easy for you to understand, but you have to study, my student. You have to study. After watching this video, make sure that you study. Study, because these things can seem easy, but they can be tricky if you do not study. So make sure that you study. Let's continue. Heterotrophic nutrition is where an organism takes food present in the bodies of other organisms. So this is a type of nutrition where an organism will obtain food that is already present in another organism. Okay. And under heterotrophic nutrition, we've got parasitic, saprophytic, and holozoic nutrition. Alright, so organisms that carry out heterotrophic nutrition are called heterotrophs. So heterotrophs, these are simply organisms that obtain food that is already present in the body of another organism. For example, you and I, we are heterotrophs. When you're eating that apple, you're obtaining food which is present in that apple, because in that apple you're going to find nutrients, which is food. Okay, so you are obtaining food present in another organism, which is a plant in this case. When you're eating chicken, you're obtaining food which is present in the body of that chicken. Are you following? So we are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are simply organisms that obtain food that is present in bodies of other organisms. And under heterotrophs, we've got parasitic, we've got saprophytic and holozoic nutrition. Under autotrophs, we've got phototrophic nutrition and chemotrophic nutrition. Okay, and phototrophic nutrition, this is nutrition where an organism makes its own food using what? Light energy. And then chemotrophic nutrition, this is nutrition where an organism makes its own food using chemical energy. Hope we are clear. Now let's look at each one of them. We're still learning. This is now parasitic nutrition, which is a type of heterotrophic nutrition. Yeah. So parasitic nutrition is a type of nutrition where an organism known as the parasite lives and feeds off another organism called the host. All right. Often causing harm such as disease, physical injury, or even death in the process. So a parasitic nutrition, it's a type of nutrition where an organism, okay, an organism which is known as a parasite, it lives. First of all, it does what? It lives and feeds off another organism called the host. So it will live on the body of the host and it will feed off the body of the host. And in the process of doing that, it may cause harm. It may cause diseases, it may cause injury, it can even cause death. Okay, so even in life, I can give examples of, those, there are people who, I remember when I was learning this topic in school, my teacher gave an example of, if you have a friend, okay, and then your friend every day they ask you for food at break time. Those friends are known as parasites because they are feeding off your food. Okay, yeah. So that can be an example you can use to remember these things. So do not be a parasite in life. You have to make sure that you work for your own things. Do not be a what? A parasite. That's a bad spirit. It shouldn't be always you asking. That's the that's the point here. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with asking, but it shouldn't be always you asking. When are you going to give? Are you following? So that's a parasitic way of living. So don't live like that. So the parasite is always smaller than the host. The parasite is always smaller than the host. Now, before I even continue, remember that this organism is obtaining food which is present in the body of another organism, right? This organism, known as a parasite, does not only obtain food from the body of the host, but it also lives on the body of the host. Are you following? Yeah. Now, there are two types of parasites, which are exoparasites, meaning those that live on the external surface of the body, e.g., lice, and endoparasites, those that live inside the body, e.g., tapeworms and roundworms. Those are the examples of um, parasites. So we've got exoparasites and endoparasites. Exoparasites, they live the external surface of the body, while endoparasites, they live inside the body. Yeah. So that's all we need to know about parasitic nutrition. The body of a parasite is always smaller. Okay, it's always smaller than the host. Now, saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition. So saprophytic nutrition is a type of nutrition where an organism called the saprophyte feeds on dead and decaying organic matter known as the substrate. Excuse me. So I'm sure we've heard this term before, substrate, right? Substrate. The saprophyte feeds by secreting extracellular digestive enzymes from its hyphae. So just because we've heard substrate, just know that, oh, there are enzymes involved here. So looking at this type of nutrition known as saprophytic nutrition, we've got these living organisms. Okay, these living organisms, they are known as saprophytes. And what do? They feed on dead and decaying organic matter. And this dead and decaying matter is known as what? Substrate. For example, this bread here, it's dead, decaying matter. Okay? So you find that they will find space there because it is nutritious. And they will start feeding off that bread. And in the process, they are going to it will be decaying. The bread will start decaying. Okay, so these saprophytes, what they do is they are going to secrete extracellular digestive enzymes from their hyphae. We're going to look at the structure in the next slide. They are going to secrete these enzymes, and these enzymes will do what? Will hydrolyze the substrate. So let's continue. These enzymes hydrolyze the substrate. What comes to your mind when you hear this term hydrolyze? So to hydrolyze simply means to break down using water. Kusungunula, using water. That's what it means to hydrolyze. So these enzymes hydrolyze the substrate, and the saprophyte absorbs the end product. So the enzymes will break down the substrate, and when an enzyme acts on a substrate, we're going to have products, right? The products that are going to be there will be absorbed by the saprophyte. Are you following? Now, examples of saprophytic organisms are mild fungi such as Muca and Rhizopus. So this is too much for you to take in. So you have to take your time. You have to take your time. we're looking at saprophytic nutrition, and we're saying type ya nutrition it is a type where an organism which is known as a saprophyte, it will feed on dead and decaying organic matter which is known as the substrate. Now, how does it do that? It will secrete extracellular enzymes that are going to digest the substrate and form products. Those products are going to be absorbed by the saprophyte. That's how it will feed off that dead and decaying matter. And examples are mild fungi such as Mucor and Rhizopus. Talking of fungi, we've got other types of fungi. We have even we've got microscopic fungi and those that we can see with our eyes, like mushroom. Mushroom is an example of a fungi. Okay, so they are not that bad. They are not that bad. So fungi, they are not plants. They are not animals. It's just another kingdom. Okay. So I hope we are following. We're still on saprophytic nutrition. Okay. So this is the diagram here. I'm sure you've seen this diagram even in past papers if you go through past papers. If not, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. So the bodies of Mucor. So Mucor is just an example or a type of fungi, okay, which feeds off dead and decaying matter. So the bodies of Mucor and Rhizopus are made of threads called hyphae. Okay, they're made of what? Threads, nituntambo, known as hyphae. Now, a mass of hyphae is called mycelium or mycelium. So a collection of those threads, tuntambo tutuja, a collection of those threads, they're known as mycelium. Okay. All right, we're following, right? We're following. So horizontal hyphae are called stolons. So if you look at this diagram here, the horizontal hyphae, they are known as stolons. Stolons. Okay, which are root-like structure. Are you following? Let me zoom so that you can see clear. Let me just zoom. All right. So the horizontal hyphae, they are known as what? Stolons. These stolons. So even here we've got stolon. Stolon. Okay. What is this structure? Stolon. Stolon. All right. Root-like hyphae are called rhizoids. Okay, rhizoids. I know these terms. These that look like roots, they're known as rhizoids. Rhizoids. Okay, say it with me. Rhizoids. Yes, these which look like roots, they're known as rhizoids. So this here is an example of Mucor. This is a structure, okay, and it has got these threads. Now a collection of these threads known as mycelium. All right, mycelium. Now the horizontal hyphae is known as stolon, and the ones that look like roots, they're known as rhizoids. That's what we're talking about here. Where was I? So root-like hyphae are called rhizoids, while those that bear spore cases, which is sporangia, are called sporangiophores. Okay, I know these terms. I know. Even me, I have challenges. I've had challenges with these terms, but there's nothing we can do. What is important is you know the spelling. Okay, so while those that bear spore cases, you've seen these are the ones that have got this carcass at the end. They bear these spore cases. This is a carcass, and inside we're going to find spores. So these ones, the hyphae that bear spore cases, are known as sporangiophores. Okay, sporangiophores. These are the hyphae that bear these cases which contain spores. Now, each spore case contains numerous spores, like I have said. So this is a carcass, and inside we've got what? Spores. Now, what are these spores? Spores are microscopic structures produced asexually, which are capable of germinating under favorable conditions. Okay, they are what? Microscopic, meaning you need a microscope for you to see them. And these microscopic structures are produced as asexually, okay, and they are capable of germinating under favorable conditions. So as you can see from this diagram, sporangium bursts, okay, the case, it will burst, and the spores are going to be dispersed by wind. Where they are going to land, if the conditions are favorable, we are going to see this structure developing again. We're going to see this structure developing. So if you get bread, you put it, you expose it to the atmosphere, and then maybe it's even moist. After 3 days, what will be formed there, you are going to see something like what we saw in the previous diagram. You're going to see something like this. This here is the fungi that is formed. So those spores, maybe they were spread from another fungi, and they were blown away by wind, and they landed on that bread. Okay, after landing on that bread, the conditions were favorable, and they started growing, forming what we are seeing in this diagram here. If I zoom in, forming what we are seeing in this diagram. Okay, so if you get a microscope, that's when you can clearly see what is there. But in your head, what you should know is that what we have there, what we have on that bread, is this structure here. Okay, so looking at this structure, we are saying that this is a muca. Okay, it's a fungi. Okay, and this fungi, when you look at these tubes are a collection of hyphae. Okay, a mass of hyphae is called what? Mycelium. So this is a mycelium. This is a collection of hyphae. Now I want you to follow me very well. This is a single one. If I get, or you can try checking on Google, there are photos of such things. So this is one hyphae. But if we have a collection of this thread, then we're going to have mycelium. Okay, but this is only one, so we're going to call it hyphae. At the end of that hyphae, we've got a case which contains spores. This case is known as sporangium. Okay, this case, as you can see, sporangium, and inside we're going to find spores. Now the hyphae that is horizontal is known as stolon, and the one that looks like roots, they are known as rhizoids. Are you following? Rhizoids. So this hyphae, what it does is it will release, or it will secrete the enzyme that will digest. Now the digestive enzyme, it will release the digestive enzyme. The hyphae, it will release the digestive enzyme. Once that substrate is digested, or it is hydrolyzed, the same hyphae, as you can see, the ones that look like roots, they will absorb the end product. These, they're going to absorb the end product. Let me repeat. The hyphae will release the what? They will release the digestive enzyme. That's how this obtains food. Okay, that's how it obtains food. The hyphae will release what? An enzyme, the digestive enzyme. That digestive enzyme, what is it going to do? It is going to hydrolyze the substrate. Okay, and the end products of that reaction will be absorbed by the rhizoids. Okay, that's how this will start growing, because it has obtained the nutrients that are necessary for it to grow. Now when it comes to it forming or producing other structures like this one, it will require this sporangium to burst, and then the spores are going to be dispersed by wind. If they land on a location which is favorable for growth, then they are going to grow. And I gave an example of bread or fruits or tomato. Those are favorable things, okay, where these things can develop if you leave it for longer periods of time. So if you leave bread for 3 days, you're going to find these things on your bread. Yeah. All right. Now, saprophytes are important in the following ways. Number one, they decompose dead organic matter, thereby preventing accumulation of dead bodies. So they decompose, they break down dead organic matter, and then they play a role in the recycling of nutrients such as carbon and nitrogen. We've got nitrogen fixing bacteria, which plays a role in the recycling of nitrogen. Okay, so they play a role in the recycling of nutrients such as carbon and nitrogen. For example, nitrogen fixing bacteria. Alright, so some saprophytes are used as food, e.g. mushrooms, like I said, fungi or saprophytes. Mushroom, those are saprophytes. But they are now, we can now see them with our naked eyes, right? But for these, known as the muca, we cannot see them with our naked eyes. We need a microscope. Alright, another reason why saprophytes are important, some saprophytes such as yeast, okay, yeast is a saprophyte. So some saprophytes such as yeast are important in brewing and baking. They are important in brewing and baking. Alright, so this is a lot for you to take in, but just study. Go through the notes, and if you have any questions, we're going to have the discussion. Holozoic nutrition. Holozoic nutrition. So Holozoic nutrition is a type of nutrition which occurs in animals in a specialized tube called the alimentary canal and involves 5 stages, namely ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. So Holozoic nutrition is a type of nutrition that occurs in animals like you and I, okay? And it occurs in a tube. It occurs in a tube known as the alimentary canal, which runs from the mouth to the anus. And this type of nutrition occurs in 5 stages. We've got ingestion, we've got ingestion, where you put in the food in your, where you put the food in your mouth, the intake of food in your mouth, that's ingestion. We've got digestion, which is the chewing, the breaking down, okay, of food. Then we've got absorption, where the body absorbs the nutrients from your food. Then we've got assimilation, where the food is now used by your body. And then we've got egestion, where the remaining food is removed from the body. That's egestion. So ingestion is the intake of food into the mouth. Digestion is the breaking down of food. Absorption is the uptake of soluble food into the bloodstream. Assimilation is the usage and incorporation of food in living cells. Then egestion is the removal of undigested foods from the body through the anus. So we're going to look at this type of nutrition later on in the syllabus. But for now, we have an idea for Holozoic nutrition. Alright, here's another thing that we need to know. Symbiosis or mutualism. So symbiosis, this is a type of relationship where there's a take and give. It's a take and give type of relationship where you take something from someone and they also benefit something from you. Okay, so that's symbiosis or mutualism. So this is an association between two different species of organisms where each species benefits the other. Example of mutualism are the association between legumes and nitrogen fixing bacteria, which is rhizobium in this case. So what happens is the legumes, what do? They provide a habitat, a place for the rhizobium to stay, while the rhizobium will fix the nitrogen into the legume plant. So if you look at this plant, right, these structures, let me try to zoom in. These round structures, these are the legumes, providing habitat or providing a place for the rhizobium to stay. So rhizobium is a type, or it is an example of a nitrogen fixing bacteria. Nitrogen is very important. It's an important nutrient, but plants cannot get it just like that. Nitrogen is present in the atmosphere, okay? There's a certain percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere, but plants cannot take up that nitrogen just like that. Therefore, it has to be converted into another form which is absorbable by plants. So plants need nitrogen to grow. They need nitrogen for different processes, but they can't take it even if it is in the atmosphere. That is where rhizobium comes in. So rhizobium is an example of a nitrogen fixing bacteria. What rhizobium does is it is going to convert that nitrogen gas into something else which is absorbable by plants, and that is ammonia. So you see, this plant is providing a place for the for the rhizobium to stay, and the rhizobium is helping this plant by converting the nitrogen gas into ammonia, which is now absorbable by the plant, because the plant will need nitrogen to do other processes for it to be nutritious. So we're going to look at this in details once we look at ecology, because this is explained under nitrogen cycle. So don't worry. For now, what I need you to know is that symbiosis is an association between two different species of organisms where each species benefit the other. Alright. This is the end for this tutorial video. Please watch this video again, get the understanding that you need, study the notes, do the assignments. That's how you learn. This has been Mr. Philip Kauma, the excellent biology tutor. Stay blessed.